Have you ever walked into a restaurant, looked up, seen the waiter making a beeline street for you, and suddenly felt your heart rate just like spike?
Oh, absolutely. The immediate panic.
Right. You're standing there in the doorway, and all of a sudden you can't remember a single word of the language you've spoken your entire life, let alone, a language you're actually trying to learn.
Exactly.
Your mind just goes completely blank.
Yeah, and I mean, it is an incredibly common physiological reaction. Your mouth goes dry, maybe your palms sweat a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Because what you're experiencing in that moment, it isn't just a lack of vocabulary. It's a genuine low-level fight or flight response.
Wait, really? Fight or flight?
Yeah.
Just from a waiter?
Yeah, because you're walking into a high-stakes negotiation of, status and needs, right?
Yeah.
And you're surrounded by complete strangers in this totally unpredictable environment.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what we're unpacking today. We're doing a deep dive into a really highly practical breakdown of restaurant English.
Which is so needed.
Right. But we aren't just going to read through like a boring vocabulary list. We are decoding the underlying social scripts here.
The invisible rules.
Exactly. We're going to look at the exact mechanisms of polite structures, the hidden rules of engagement, all of it. Because the mission today is to figure out how anyone can navigate this kind of busy, high-pressure environment without, just completely freezing up.
Because the pressure you feel, it isn't because the stakes of the meal itself are high. I mean, it's just dinner, right?
Yeah, nobody's life is on the line over salad.
Exactly. The pressure comes entirely from the social dynamics. You're trying to communicate very specific personal desires to a total stranger. And usually you're doing this in a bustling, noisy room filled with, tons of sensory input.
So much sensory overload.
Right. So we're going to break down the specific phrasing strategies that actually strip away all that cognitive load. We want to equip you to go from walking through the front door all the way to comfortably paying the bill.
Completely stress-free. And while we were reviewing the sources for this, a really specific framework stood out to me. Instead of viewing a restaurant visit as some kind of test you have to pass, it makes far more sense to view the language you need as modular.
Modular, I like that.
Right? Think of it like Lego bricks. You don't need to melt down the plastic and mold a brand new brick every time you want to speak.
That would be exhausting.
Right. You just need a handful of pre-assembled blocks that you can just click together. So let's start at the very beginning of the interaction. You walk through the front doors and you hit that classic, "Please wait to be seated" sign.
The threshold of the experience. This is exactly where the biological bottleneck happens.
What do you mean by bottleneck?
Well, when you enter a busy restaurant, your brain is immediately flooded with environmental data, right? It's trying to map the spatial layout, it's assessing the lighting, filtering the ambient noise.
Tracking where all the waiters are walking.
Exactly. It's analyzing the movement of the staff to figure out the social hierarchy of the room. And because your cognitive RAM is entirely maxed out doing this threat assessment, your language centers actually get starved of processing power.
Wow.
Yeah, you quite literally lose access to your ability to construct complex grammar on the fly.
Okay, that perfectly explains why people just freeze when the host simply asks, "How many?"
Right.
Like your brain is too busy processing the smell of garlic and, clattering plates to actually conjugate verbs.
Precisely. And this is why your very first Lego brick needs to be a preloaded, unalterable phrase. You do not construct it in the moment, you just retrieve it.
Like a reflex.
Exactly. You walk up and you just say, "Hello, a table for 2, please," or, depending on your group size, "a table for 4, please."
You just bypass the grammar processing entirely.
You bypass it entirely.
But wait, let me push back on that for a second. If I drop a perfectly fluent, preloaded phrase like, "a table for 2, please," won't the host just assume I'm completely fluent?
Oh, I see where you're going with this.
Yeah, I feel like I'm setting a trap for myself. What if they respond with a rapid-fire, complex question? Something like, "We only have a booth in the back with a 20-minute wait," or "I can seat you at the high top near the bar right now."
Which happens all the time.
Right. And if I'm a non-native speaker, or even just overwhelmed, I wouldn't understand a single word of that follow-up.
It's a very valid fear. The worry is that sounding competent initially is going to unmask your incompetence seconds later.
Exactly.
But the mechanism of the modular phrase actually protects you from that.
How so?
By taking the lead with a really highly specific standard phrase, you are narrowing the branching paths of the conversation. You're actually forcing the host into a predictable script.
Oh, I get it.
Right. 9 times out of 10, the response will be a very simple, right this way, or super predictable, do you have a reservation?
Okay, and if they do ask about a reservation and you don't have one, the strategy is to just drop the next preloaded block, which is, no, do you have a table available?
Yes. And notice how that phrase is constructed. It doesn't apologize, right? And it doesn't over-explain why you don't have a reservation.
You're not like, oh, I'm so sorry, we forgot to call.
Exactly. It simply hands the conversational momentum directly back to the host. It forces a binary yes or no response, which completely protects you from that rapid-fire complexity you were so worried about.
Okay, that makes total sense. You use the preloaded phrases to control the pacing right at the door. So, okay, we've navigated the entrance, we survived, we are seated at our table.
Success.
But now the environment shifts, right?
Yeah.
The pressure changes from the sensory overload of the door to the ticking clock of the waiter.
Oh, yeah. The clock starts the literal moment you sit down.
And sometimes you sit down and the waiter is busy.
Yeah.
And they just, forget to hand you the menu.
It happens.
Yeah. So the framework gives us 2 simple blocks for this. Could we see the menu? Or can I have the menu, please? But once that menu is actually in your hands, you have to decode it before your guide returns.
Right, because a menu is essentially a map of the restaurant's inventory. And it can induce a massive amount of decision fatigue.
Oh, easily.
Your brain is trying to categorize dozens of items while simultaneously anticipating the waiter's return.
So to manage that fatigue, you have to break the map down into its 4 universal quadrants.
The 4 quadrants.
Right. First, you've got your starters, which are sometimes listed as appetizers. This is your tomato soup, your Caesar salad, that kind of thing.
The preamble to the meal. These are typically your lighter palate opening dishes.
Yeah. Then you move to the core of the map, which is the main course,
right,
or the entree. This is the heavy lifting.
The big stuff.
Exactly. The grilled salmon, the mushroom pasta, the steak.
The absolute anchor of your order.
And then you also have the dessert section for later. And running parallel to all of this, you have the drinks or beverages section. So you're sitting there, scanning these quadrants, trying to mentally assemble a meal. And then it happens.
They're back.
The waiter suddenly appears right beside your table, pen clicked, ready to go. They ask if you were ready to order. And you are definitely, absolutely not ready.
This is a massive friction point for so many people.
Yeah.
Because the server has just interrupted your cognitive processing.
And the immediate instinct is just to panic. I mean, I always feel this overwhelming guilt that I am somehow holding up the machinery of the entire restaurant.
Think you're a roadblock.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have a dozen other tables to manage. I feel this intense pressure to just blurt out the first thing I see. Like, I'll have the salmon. Even if I really wanted to look at the pasta options, it just feels incredibly rude to dismiss them.
You know, it's funny, if we look at the actual mechanics of restaurant operations, that guilt is entirely misplaced.
Really?
100%. A waiter operates on predictability and flow. When you stall and you hum and haw and take 3 minutes to panic read the menu, while they literally just stand there staring at you.
That sounds awful for everyone.
It is. You are breaking their rhythm. You become a variable they cannot control.
So a slow, agonizing decision at the table is actually worse for them than just sending them away.
Oh, absolutely. The server would much rather have clear, actionable data. If you dismiss them politely, they can instantly mentally categorize your table as a 5-minute delay, and then they can go refill water glasses at another table.
Okay, so the key is really how you execute the dismissal. You have to take control of the pacing without, violating the social contract.
Exactly. And the modular blocks for this are actually brilliant. You just make eye contact and say, we need a few more minutes, please, or can we have another minute?
Can we have another minute? That's so simple.
Right, but let's look at the mechanics of why it works. It does 3 things simultaneously. First, it acknowledges the server's presence, which shows respect.
Right, you aren't ignoring them.
Second, it provides a specific time frame, a minute or a few minutes, which gives them that predictable data they need. And third, it formally releases them from your table.
Wow, okay.
You aren't being rude at all. You are actually being the ideal communicative customer.
You are pausing the clock on your own terms. I love that. All right, so we've bought our time, we've analyzed the map, we've finally chosen the mushroom pasta over the salmon.
Good choice.
The waiter returns. It's time to actually order. This is where the linguistic stakes are the absolute highest.
The moment of execution.
And there is a massive linguistic trap here that trips up so many people, especially if they are translating directly from their native language.
Yes.
The trap is looking at the waiter and stating your order by saying, I want the steak.
Oh, the dreaded "I want." It is honestly the quickest way to sour an interaction in an English-speaking environment.
It sounds incredibly harsh, doesn't it? When you hear "I want" in English, it instantly evokes a toddler demanding a toy in a grocery store.
Yes.
Just screaming, "I want the truck! I want the candy!"
What is fascinating about this is the gap between grammar and sociolinguistics, because grammatically, "I want the steak" is flawless.
It's technically correct.
Right. It has a subject, a verb, and an object. It efficiently conveys the exact information required for the transaction. But sociolinguistically, it is a disaster.
Why is that?
Because it violates the core operating principle of English politeness. And that politeness relies entirely on a psychological distance.
Psychological distance. How does that work in a restaurant?
Well, in many cultures, directness is valued as a sign of honesty and efficiency. But English politeness is built on this concept of not imposing on another person's autonomy.
Okay.
When you say, "I want," you are delivering a direct command. You are asserting dominance and stripping the server of their autonomy.
You're essentially treating them like a vending machine.
Exactly. A button you press to get food. To navigate this, English requires a buffer. We use modal verbs to create distance between our actual desire and the request.
So instead of a direct command, we use specific polite structures. The first major Lego brick for this is "I'd like," which is just a contraction for "I would like."
Exactly. "I would like" shifts the sentence from a command to a statement of preference. You're merely informing the server of a hypothetical desire.
And that softens the impact completely.
It really does.
The other essential block is "I'll have." And, you can't even say that phrase without thinking of that famous diner scene in the movies, right? "I'll have what she's having."
Oh, of course. But that movie quote proves how foundational the phrase is to the English ear. It is the default, culturally accepted script for claiming an item in a commercial setting.
And there's a third block that is just as common, which is "could I get?"
Could I get? This is perhaps the most advanced polite structure.
Really? Why advanced?
Because of how it manipulates the illusion of choice. By phrasing it as a question about capability, "could I?" you are grammatically offering the server the theoretical option to say no.
Even though they obviously aren't going to say no?
Right. But offering that illusion of choice is the ultimate sign of respect for their autonomy.
Let's look at how this actually flows in practice, because the mechanics become really clear when you stack these blocks together. Imagine a scenario at, let's call it, the Garden Bistro.
Okay, the Garden Bistro.
The waiter asks for your drink order. You don't say, "Give me water." You click the first block into place. "I'll have a sparkling water with lemon."
See, the rhythm there is smooth and non-confrontational.
Then the waiter pivots to the food. You reach for the next block. "For the starter, I'd like the Caesar salad. And for the main, could I get the mushroom pasta?"
Flawless.
You were literally just stacking "I'll have," "I'd like," and "could I get." It completely removes the need to worry about complex sentence structure. You just snap the food item onto the end of the polite block.
It reduces the cognitive load of ordering to near zero.
Right.
But, and this is a critical caveat here, before you start stacking those polite blocks, you have to ensure physical safety.
Physical safety.
Yes. A restaurant is fundamentally a place where you are trusting total strangers to prepare substances you are going to ingest.
Oh, the lifesaver phrases.
Yeah.
Right. If you have an allergy or, an aversion to spice, you cannot rely on assumptions.
Absolutely not. A miscommunication about a peanut allergy isn't just a social faux pas, it is a literal medical emergency.
Yeah, that's life or death.
When safety is on the line, you drop the softening buffers entirely and prioritize absolute clarity. If you have an allergy, the sequence must be explicit. You say, "Excuse me, I'm allergic to peanuts. Does this dish contain any nuts?"
Notice how there is no would or could there. Does this dish contain any nuts? It is a direct, factual inquiry.
Precisely. You state the condition, "I am allergic to peanuts," which provides the context for your directness. And then you ask the binary question.
And the same applies to spice levels, right?
Yes.
You ask, is this dish very spicy? You must establish these parameters before you ever deploy your "I'll have" or "I'd like" blocks.
Okay, so we've successfully navigated the menu. We used our polite structures. We verified the allergy information. The food arrives. We are eating. But the interaction isn't actually over, is it? We enter the maintenance phase of the meal. Yes, mid-meal troubleshooting.
And this is a scenario that genuinely stresses me out. You are halfway through your main course. You take a bite of something saltier than you expected. You reach for your glass, and it is completely empty.
The worst feeling.
You look around, and your waiter is on the exact opposite side of the room. How do you get their attention? Because the nightmare scenario playing in my head is standing up in a quiet, crowded dining room and just shouting, "Hey!" at the top of my lungs.
Oh, doing that would instantly shatter the social contract of the entire room.
It's so aggressive.
Shouting demands attention through volume,
Right.
which is an aggressive imposition on everyone else's experience. The restaurant environment requires much more subtle choreography.
So what is the actual protocol to signal for help without looking, desperate or obnoxious?
It is a deliberate, multi-step process, and it relies entirely on nonverbal cues first. You track your waiter's movement. Servers are trained to periodically scan the room. You wait for their eyes to sweep past your zone.
Okay.
And the moment you make eye contact, you execute a visual ping.
A visual ping, meaning a slight, polite raise of the hand.
Exactly. Just raising the hand to about shoulder level with an open palm or an extended index finger. It is a subtle physical marker that just says, "I require assistance when you are available."
And once they acknowledge the ping and walk over to your table, you have to transition back to verbal communication.
Yes, and this is where you deploy the ultimate social lubricant. It is a simple two-word block. Excuse me.
Excuse me. I mean, it works in almost every situation.
Because it elegantly acknowledges that you are interrupting their workflow while simultaneously framing that interruption as a polite request.
It does double duty.
Once you've initiated with, "Excuse me," you simply click on one of the polite request blocks we discussed earlier.
So, excuse me, could I get some extra napkins? Or, excuse me, could we have some more water, please?
Exactly. You pair the polite interrupter with the polite request. It is flawless execution. You have solved the mid-meal crisis without raising your voice or breaking the social contract.
It's amazing. Okay, so the water's refilled, the plates are cleared, we are full, we are happy. Now it is time to wrap up the entire experience and initiate the exit strategy.
Right, because settling up is the final negotiation. The
Right.
restaurant will generally let you sit there indefinitely unless you trigger the closing sequence.
And the data from our sources highlights a really interesting geographical distinction here regarding the exact terminology you need to use to trigger it.
Oh, yes. The terminology shifts dramatically depending on where you are dining.
If you are the United States, the standard, universally recognized phrase is, "The check, please."
Right. But if you cross the Atlantic to the UK, or honestly many other Commonwealth nations, asking for a check will just cause confusion. There, you must ask for the bill.
Could we have the bill, please? And getting the paper to the table is only half the battle. Then you have to manage the actual logistics of the transaction. You can't just assume they take your specific form of payment.
Right, you have to verify the infrastructure. You ask, do you take credit cards? Or, increasingly in modern dining, do you take Apple Pay?
And there's one final question the server will inevitably ask you. And if you aren't ready for it, it can cause a sudden spike of panic right at the finish line, especially if you are dining with a group.
The split question.
They will look at the table and ask, will you be paying together or separately?
Together or separately. It is a crucial logistical hurdle.
It is actually a massive relief when they ask it,
Yeah.
because it saves you from having to do complicated math on a napkin while everyone stares at you.
Oh, trying to calculate the tip by hand? No thanks.
Exactly. You just confidently reply, "Separately, please," and the server does all the heavy lifting with their little machine.
You know, when you look at this entire journey, from the anxiety of the front door through the complexity of the menu, the sociolinguistics of ordering, and the final payment negotiation, a profound realization emerges about language itself.
Oh, what is the realization?
To survive and thrive in a high-pressure, fast-paced social environment, you do not need mastery of complex grammar.
Right.
You do not need a vast, fluid vocabulary. You just need to master the modular chunks.
The Lego bricks.
Exactly. Language in these specific environments is entirely modular. If you memorize could I get, I'll have, and excuse me, you have built the entire foundation.
And then you just swap out the variables, the salmon, the water, the bill.
Yes. Without ever forcing your brain to process the grammatical structure, it bypasses the biological bottleneck entirely.
Which means you actually have the mental bandwidth to enjoy the meal and the company. So how do you actually apply this? The source data suggests a brilliant piece of homework, and I highly recommend trying this.
That's a great exercise.
Right. The next time you go out to eat, even if you are just going to a local spot in your own neighborhood and speaking your native language, practice the modular script.
It is a phenomenal mental exercise in pattern recognition.
As you're looking at the menu, visualize the transaction, run the script under your breath in English, picture the waiter approaching, and practice clicking the blocks together. I'd like to order the pizza. Or, excuse me, I'll have the hamburger, please.
Build the muscle memory.
Exactly. Feel the rhythm of those phrases. Build the muscle memory of the polite structures before you are ever thrust onto the actual stage.
Getting comfortable with the mechanics of the script in a low-stakes environment is the key to deploying it flawlessly when the pressure is really on.
Absolutely.
But, analyzing these interactions so deeply actually raises a much larger, somewhat unsettling question to consider as we wrap up today.
Unsettling. What is the question?
Well, we've just spent this entire time dissecting how a stressful, complex environment like a busy restaurant can be completely mastered simply by memorizing and deploying a handful of modular invisible scripts.
Right. Can I get the check, please? Just clicking the blocks together.
If that is true for a restaurant, it forces you to look at the rest of your life.
How so?
How much of our everyday human interaction, the daily conversations we have with our colleagues at work, the chats with our neighbors, even the dialogue with our closest friends and family, how much of that is just a shared illusion of spontaneous conversation?
Wow.
Right. How much of our daily lives is actually just built on these exact same invisible, pre-programmed scripts masking themselves as our original thought?
That is a heavy concept. We all think we are brilliantly improvising our way through life, but we might just be trading the exact same Lego bricks back and forth all day long without ever realizing it.
It certainly makes you evaluate your next conversation differently.
It really does.
Yeah.
So the next time you walk through the doors of a restaurant and you see that waiter turning your way and you feel that familiar spike in your chest, take a breath. You don't have to invent a masterpiece on the spot.
Just to grab a block.
You just have to reach for the right block. You already have all the pieces you need.